Completing the square. These are the following steps for completing the square. First step, move your constant and simplify right. Step 2 is factor out an a if it is there, which is your leading coefficient, and add spacers. Step 3, take your b term, divide it by 2 and square it. Add this to both sides of your equal sign. Step 4, factor your left side and simplify your right side. Step 5 is solve for x, and step 6 is to check your work. So in this one we have x squared plus 2x equals 0. We're going to look at our steps as we go through this. Step 1 says move out your constant. Well, we do not have a constant, so we don't need to worry about step 1. 2 says factor out a, your leading coefficient. Again, we do not have one in this problem. So the second part of step 2 says add spacers, so that's what we're going to do. Then we take our b term, which is 2, divide it by 2 and square it, and we get 1. We're going to add this number to both sides of our equation. Step 4 says to factor out your left and simplify your right. So on the left, we're left with x plus 1 squared, and then when we simplify the right, we get 0 plus 1, which is just 1. When you look at the factored form, we have x plus 1. That 1 double gives us our b term, which is 2, and 1 squared gives us 1, which is our c term, and it should always work out like that. Then we square root both sides, and we're left with x plus 1 equals plus or minus 1. Remember, when you square root a number, you get a positive and a negative value. Then we're going to solve for x, and then we're going to subtract negative 1 on both sides, and we get x equals negative 1 plus or minus 1. Since it's a quadratic function, you should get two solutions. So we're going to break it apart, and we get x equals negative 1 plus 1 and negative 1 minus 1. So our solutions are 0 and negative 2. Step 6 says check your work. So we're going to take 0 and put it into our quadratic equation. 0 squared plus 2 times 0 is 0, which is correct. And then negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2 is 0, and that's correct. So we solved this one correctly. Let's look at one more example. We have 4x squared plus 48x plus 28 equals negative 4. Again, we're going to look at the steps as we move through this. The first step is move your constant and simplify the right side. So we have a constant of 28. We're going to subtract this on both sides, and we get 4x squared minus 48x equals negative 4 minus 28. So when we simplify it, we get negative 32, and then step 2 says factor out a. Well, our a is 4. So when we factor that out, we're left with x squared minus 12x plus whatever your space is equals negative 32 plus 4 times space. Remember, when we're doing something to one side of our equation, we have to do it to the other. And since we have parentheses x squared minus 12x plus space, whatever number we get to go in that space will be multiplied by 4. So what we have to do on the other side is also multiply it by 4 to keep both sides equal. So then we keep going, and we have b divided by 2 squared, and our b is 12. So when we do 12 divided by 2 squared, we get 36, and we're going to add this to both sides. So we factor out the left and simplify the right. When we factor out the left, we get 4 times x minus 6 squared. Again, your negative 6 doubled should give you 12x, and 6 squared should give you 36. And we get negative 32 plus 4 times 36, which gives you 112 for the right. Then we solve for x. So our first thing is we divide by 4 on both sides, and we get x minus 6 squared equals 28. Then we square root both sides, and we're left with x minus 6 on the left equals plus or minus the square root of 28. We can simplify the square root of 28 into 2 square root 7. Since 4 is a perfect square inside 28, we can square root 4, bring that out, which is 2, and then we're left with 7 inside the radical sign. We add 6 to both sides, and we get x equals 6 plus or minus 2 square root 7. You'll see some answers left in this form, and then you'll also see them written as decimals. So we have a 6 plus 2 square root of 7 and 6 minus 2 square root of 7, so we're left with 11.29 and 0.71. Then we can check our work by plugging these solutions into our quadratic equation, and we end up getting them correct. So this is completing the square, or solving quadratics by completing the square.